Right. So in the last class, we discussed about the sampling part, the types of sampling. We have also discussed about the two major types of sampling, that is probability sampling and non-probability sampling. And we have also worked out some of the problems on the standard deviation part. We have seen the problems on standard deviation, and I have given the formula also in the last class. What should be the formula for the modified formula, the one which is not correctly mentioned in your book. So basically, for standard deviation, we have two different formulas. One is that simple terms, that is without any group. We can call it as individual, discrete. Another formula is that when they are giving it as a group, when some kind of continuous values is being given, when you have to take a midpoint, and it goes like this, like sigma fx square divided by n. So I have given it in the last class. So you as a student, you just need to make a note of it. No, you don't just quickly take a snap of it. It's not required at all. Okay? Taking a snap is not going to help you out, because you have both the hard copy as well as the soft copy. You have to take a notepad, write it, okay, in your own hands, so that you can refer it before the exam, so that you will be having a lot of formulas, and you should keep memorizing those formulas as and when it is required. So basically, why I'm emphasizing on the standard deviation part, though we have covered other topics, is I feel it is more important. There might be a question on standard deviation. Fine. So coming to the today's class, so where we stopped the last class, we stopped with the last class on the uh, types of sampling. In that, we discussed about probability sampling. So the one which is remaining is non-probability sampling. Now, if you are having your book, or if you are having the soft copy that I have shared, you can open the soft copy. You can in the soft copy, if you're there. mm, okay, now I don't think so. It is not required also, because I'll tell you what it is. Whether you have your book or not doesn't matter. All right. So you have, I think last class itself I have told you where you have to refer. I'll share the screen so that I can write it on the whiteboard. Of whiteboard.
So hard copy page number, please.
Hard copy.
Page number 69.
Page number 69. Yeah. Page number 69 is the hard copy. Basically, lesson 8. You can discuss it correspondingly. Right. So we discussed about the now why I'm also taking the this theoretical part. There might be few questions, at least 10 to 20% of the questions would be from theory. So it is easy for you to attend, and it is easy for you to clear it also. And some of the students who are not very strong in mathematical part, for them it is a chance for them to at least pass by attempting the theory question. So that is why I'm not omitting it. Right. So I'm going to talk about the non-probability sampling. Is the voice is clear, or whenever I'm leaving the mic, is it low? If I'm leaving the mic,
It's okay, sir, because we're using headphone.
Sir, your voice is clear.
No. If I'm not holding my mic near to my mouth.
Yeah, it's okay, sir.
Are you facing any difficulty in terms of hearing what I'm saying?
No, sir.
No. Okay, fine.
No, sir.
So
We
if
can
No,
hear
sir.
you.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah, put it in mute. Put it in mute. Yeah. So non-probability sampling, the first type of sampling. So what does this non-probability sampling means? As the name suggests, whenever I'm taking this sampling, by not giving each and every member of the population to be a part of the sample, this type of sampling is what we call it as non-probability sampling. Say, for example, if I wanted to take the feedback of this particular class, I just take only those students who are having the, name starting with an alphabet A. Now that is what we call it as non-probability sampling, because on what basis that I have selected that, I will be selecting those students who are having the alphabetical order starting from A. So this is what we call it as non-probability. So that means I am not allowing each and every student to be a part of the sample. You think about another scenario, if I write each and every student's name in the chit, and if I shuffle it, and if I take one or two students' name to know whether you have understood or not, and I may ask some questions out. So that is what we call it as probability sampling. That means I'm allowing each and every student to be a part of the sample. I may select or I may not select. That depends upon your good luck or bad luck. That's a different case. But when it comes to non-probability sampling, it is almost that I'm biased. I'm biased. I might insult a particular student or I might praise a particular student. This is what we call it as a non-probability sampling, and this is mostly based on bias. Now, under this non-probability sampling, the first one is, I can call it as judgment judgment sampling, or we can also use another word called purposive sampling also, what you have mentioned it in your textbook. So I use the word called judgment sampling or purposive sampling. They can ask any type of questions, right? Now what is meant by judgment sampling? When you are selecting the sample based on your own judgment is what we call it as judgment sampling. How do you have to understand this? Let us say that I'm giving you an assignment, like you have to conduct a survey among 10 good politicians in your own city, asking them the impact of corona in Indian economy. Okay, now what is the task that I have given you? I have given you to conduct a survey among 10 good politicians. So put this good politicians in inverted commas. What do you mean by good politician? So somebody say that, okay, according to me, I'm from Delhi. I feel that Aam Aadmi Party is a very good party, and all the MLAs of Aam Aadmi Party MLAs are very good. So now this is what we call it as judgmental sampling. Somebody who's from Kolkata, they might say that no, Mamata Banerjee party is a very good party, so I will select only those cadres of Mamata Banerjee party, or those MLAs under Mamata Banerjee, or I know so and so MLA who is my relative, who is my friend's relative. I know them personally. So that means you are selecting someone as a good politician based on your own judgment. You are not doing any kind of homework, or not. You are not getting into any kind of random sampling method. So that means you are selecting somebody as a part of the sample as a good politician based on your own judgment. This sampling is what we call it as judgmental sampling, right? So the second type of sampling, nothing to explain much. I can have any kind of, can have any type. Say for example, okay, fine. So we can have any kind of example. Maybe let it be. Let's say that if not a political example, I'm giving you a task. Okay, you have to conduct a survey among good heart specialist, okay, or the heart expert in your city, okay, the best heart specialist among the city on. I mean, you can take like what is that prescribed medicine that they give for your own customers. Some kind of task I might give you. So now forget about the task, forget about what you have to collect from the heart specialist. But on what basis that you will select the heart specialist in your own city is that again you will take your own judgment, you will have your own judgment, you will take your own call. This is what we call it as judgmental sampling. Or I may give a question, okay, you conduct a survey among 10 good teachers in the city, or in five good teachers within IIPS. So again, you will have your own choice. Again, you will, whoever listens to you, they become very good. Whoever does not listens to you, they become very bad. So you will choose only those five according to your own judgment. So these are all what we call it as judgmental sampling. When you use your judgment to select, that is what we call it as judgmental sampling. The second type of sampling, we can call it as uh, the second one is okay. One is which we can also call it as purposive sampling. The second one, convenience, convenience sampling. Right? What is this convenience sampling? When you are choosing the sample based on your own convenience without having any kind of scientific method, basically you are lazy, you are biased, and you don't want to go out and you don't want to do much of the homework. Let's say that I'm giving you a task. I mean, you, most of you guys are staying, guys and girls are staying in the hostel. I'm giving you a task or a kind of survey among girl students who are staying in the hostel. And the task is that you have to find out the network uh, quality in ozone. So what do immediately? Immediately you will check what is the network quality. I mean the mobile network quality in your flat. So that means you will check your flatmates first. Then after the flatmates are over, then you will check your floor mates. If you are staying in second floor, you will check more. I mean, you try to get the sample mainly from the second floor, mostly your own friends. Then once the floor is over, then you will check the block, that is D block, and you would end up ignoring the other blocks where boys are also there. I did not say anything that you have to check only in D block or you have to check only among girls hostel. I have told you that you have to check whether the internet quality is very good in ozone. So that means ideally you have to check each and every block, not just only B block, not just only D block alone. You have to check A, B, C, D, all the blocks. I didn't even say that in aqua. So that means you may also have to consider pavilion as well, whoever is staying in pavilion also. So now this type of sampling is what we call it as convenience sampling. Why did I use the word convenience? Because you are selecting the sample based on your own convenience. You are selecting the sample from your flatmates. You are choosing only your relatives. You are choosing only your friends. You are ignoring the strangers. You are choosing not to ask any questions from an unknown person. Now, this is what we call it as convenient sampling. So, as per the name, whether it is a judgment sampling or convenience sampling, we can write the definition with the name itself and give some relevant example, whichever suits for you. Fine. The third one is what we call it as quota sampling. Now, what is meant by quota sampling? Quota sampling is a kind of sampling where it is like it is a combination of, I can also see, quota sampling is a combination of stratified sampling, stratified sampling, and convenience sampling. So quota sampling is a combination of stratified sampling plus convenience sampling. Okay, now let me give you an example so that you can understand it. Now, in stratified sampling, I don't know whether you can recollect the last discussion what we have. What is meant by stratified sampling? Stratified sampling, first of all, I will divide the entire population into different stratas, and from the stratas, I will choose the sample proportionately in random manner. So two things I will be using. First of all, I will be dividing the population into different stratas. From the stratas, I will be choosing the members of the sample proportionally using simple random method. Now, I use the term simple random method. In quota sampling, I will be using my own judgment to choose, or I will be using a very convenient way to choose the sample. Are you getting? Say, for example, I wanted to use, let's say that I'm taking this statistics. Let's say that I'm taking statistics subjects for both BCU as well as for uh, this AU students. Now, if I'm using simple random sampling, I write every student name in a sheet, or I mean, in a sheet, and I will be shuffling it, and I'll be choosing accordingly. That is, I will not differentiate between BCU and AU students. I'll be writing all the students' name, and whoever name is coming, it may be all 10 might be AU students, or all 10 might be BCU, or 5 might be AU, 5 might be AU. So that doesn't matter for me. I just want to know the student feedback. When I use stratified random sampling, I will divide the population into two. The division is BCU students and AU students. And I will choose 10 from BCU and probably 3 from AU. Why 10? Because of the number of students in BCU. Why only 3 for AU? Because of the number of students. On what basis I will select this 10? I will write all BCU students' name in a chit. I will shuffle it and I will choose it. On what basis I will select AU students? I will write every student name in a chit, shuffle it, and I will choose 3. This is what we call it as stratified random sampling or stratified sampling. So why do I use the word random sampling? Because though I have selected, though I have classified the population into different strata, ultimately I am choosing the sample based on simple random method. When I choose a sample on my own convenience, after dividing into different stratas is what we call it as quota sampling. The same step, divide it into different stratas. Here I can use the word different quotas. I have decided that I'm going to choose 10 from BCU, I'm going to choose 3 from AU. Once I have divided, how do I select that 10 from BCU? I may select all the 10 students in the first bench, and I may select all the 3 students in AU in the first bench. When I adopt this technology, that is what we call it as quota sampling. Are you able to find the difference between quota sampling and stratified random sampling? If yes, I can go to the next one.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Or anyone is having any doubt or any clarification? Because this stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, quota sampling, all the 3 samplings are more or less similar, because the first step is same. In all the 3 sampling, the first step is same: divide the population into different groups. The groups, I can call it as cluster, sometimes I call it as strata, sometimes I call it as quota, depending upon the type of sampling I'm discussing. I may use different name, but step 2 differs. In cluster sampling, I will take the entire cluster and I will interview each and every member in the cluster. I will conduct survey from each and every member in the cluster. In stratified random sampling, I will take the sample proportionately from different strata in a simple random manner. In quota sampling, same, I will take different members of the sample from the population, that is from the stratas proportionately, but not on simple random manner, but on my own convenience. Right? So understand the minute difference between this, which is more important. The last sampling, I don't know whether they have mentioned it in your book or not, which is also important, which they should have mentioned, is snowball sampling. Snowball sampling. Okay, what is this snowball sampling? As the name suggests, if you would have seen the snowball in some movies or in some Discovery or National Geographic channel, you can see that the snowball, it will start like a small ball. Okay, it might be as small like a cricket ball, and then it becomes slowly bigger in size like a football. How does it grows? Because as it rolls, it keeps pulling all the snows on its way once it slides from the mountain. So once it reaches the end, it becomes so big that it swallows whatever comes on its way. Now, this is the typical characteristics of snowball. So now, why do I use this word for the snowball sampling? Is very simple. Let's say that I'm giving you a task. Like the task is that you have to find out the placement scenario in IIM Ahmedabad. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, you know one contact from IIM Ahmedabad who is doing PGDM program. Probably they might have, probably you might have studied in the same MBA entrance institute, or somewhere or other. You got to know about the contact and you are in touch with him or her. Now, what do? You will circulate the survey that you have designed, which captures the placement scenario of IIM Ahmedabad, which can give you latest updates on the placement package, number of companies, whichever is coming regarding the satisfaction towards the placement. So you will collect that response. After that, what you will do, you will ask the friend, can you please give one more contact of your known friend? He said, yeah, I don't have much contact of others, but I know some three of my friends. So he might refer it for three of their friends. So once you have conducted the survey among three friends, then you will ask, do you know any more people? So like this, your sampling size keeps going up, right? So now ultimately you will be able to conduct a survey among at least 100 students who are studying PGDM in IIM Ahmedabad. So now, why did I give this example? Because initially you may not be aware of the contact of 100 students in IIM Ahmedabad. You got to know about IIM Ahmedabad 100 students by the reference of one student, his friends, and his friends has referred another friend. Like this, you got to know about so many people, right? So now this type of sampling is what we call it as snowball sampling. This type of sampling is mostly used whenever you wanted to conduct a survey among some experts like doctors, politicians, or maybe something like scientists, media people. So whenever your target population or these type of people, which the number of people is very very less and you don't have much access to them, you can get the survey done by the mere reference, right? So guys, I think we have covered what is meant by sampling, probability sampling. We discussed about the different types of probability sampling, and we've also discussed about the non-probability sampling, the four different types. So now let us go on to the next one. So other things I don't think so, which is very much important in examination point of view. Probably you can read it on your own. The other things which is mentioned in the chapter. So straight away, I'm going to this hypothesis part. Hypothesis part. I mean, I'm not telling that they will not ask in the exam, but they have not asked it in the past. So I don't think so. It is that much important because we are trying to cover the portion in a very very fast track mode. Okay, so now I would, if you're having the hard copy of the book, you can just go to page number 84, which talks about the hypothesis. So now again, we're going to the theoretical part now, hypothesis. Right. So, all right. So, what is meant by hypothesis? Now, what is meant by hypothesis? I mean, because you're learning hypothesis for the first time, I'm not going to ask any questions from you, but generally I'll be asking questions from the students because whenever they are learning research or stats, they will be having a fair idea of about what is meant by hypothesis. See, hypothesis is nothing but the characteristics of the population through the sample. Okay, let me repeat. Hypothesis is the assumption about the characteristics of the population through the sample. For student level example, let's say that there are some 100 students and I'm checking the UG marks of say some 4 or 5 students and I got to know somebody is telling 68%, 70%, 72%, 75%. So on an average, I would come to a rough or a logical conclusion that the class I mean, UG score might be more or less 70% or 72%. Or let's say that we have PGDM, BCU, and AU students. So one fine day, I have decided that okay, I'm going to select some 3 students from AU, 10 students from BCU, 10 students from PGDM, and I will be checking it based on random manner. I don't have any bias. So I will check those 10 students attendance percentage. Let's say that in BCU the attendance percentage is 70, PGDM 60, AU 50. Okay, average for all the students whom are selected. So now I come to a logical conclusion that okay, if the sample that I have selected among AU, the attendance percentage is 50 for 3 students. Then for another 13 or 14 students also, it will be more or less 50. I use the word more or less. So I will explain about what you mean by this term, more or less. So hypothesis, this is the understanding that you need to have about hypothesis. Hypothesis is not about the sample. Many people, they think that hypothesis is about the sample. No, hypothesis is about the population through the sample. You are predicting the you are predicting the population. You are predicting the population through the sample. You're getting, guys, what I'm saying? Say for example, uh, let's say that my character is the hypothesis. Let's say that at one instance, when I'm taking class, let's say that somebody was sleeping and out of irritation, I just throw the chalk on a particular student. Okay, now that culture is not there right now, but during our days, it used to happen where there are very good faculties who are very good at throwing chalk. Even if there are 50 students also, no, they pinpoint that particular person who is creating nuisance and they throw the chalk on the particular person. Now, if I do this, then you would come to a logical conclusion that I might be a short-tempered person. I did not say that I'm a short-tempered person. That means one instance is more than sufficient for you to come to a logical conclusion that this is what I am. Say, for example, if I'm let's say that if you are going in a bike, let's say whoever is there, who is there online now? Okay, Shubham Patidar is there, and who is this? Welcome, man. Who is this? Welcome.
Rohit means sir.
Rohit means is taking Shubham Patidar for a bike drive to college. So now while he is going, when he's starting the bike, when he's about to make a cut, he skids. So don't you think so? This small instance is more than sufficient for Shubham Patidar to come to a logical conclusion that Rohit means might not be good at riding bike. So now this is
No,
what
sir,
we
I'm a
call it
very
as.
good.
We are
I'm a
very
very
good.
good
Very good.
rider.
Keep it up. So if this is what we call it as hypothesis. So when you are generalizing the characteristics of the population, this is what we call it as. Because sometimes no, we have some kind of stereotypic thinking. You remember? Yeah, I know. You guys know. Yeah, you're from China, man. You're the one who spread virus. So that means this is what we call it as hypothesis. You're getting? So China, this is the hypothesis what we are creating. You are from so and so state. I know about what your state people does and all those things. Yeah, you are from Kerala. No, you don't allow any companies to come and start in your state. All those things. So now this is what we call it as hypothesis. That is, through the sample, I'm coming to a logical conclusion about the characteristics of the population like this, right? So now when you talk about when you talk about this okay, this is what about hypothesis I have told you. I talk about the how do you test the hypothesis. Steps for testing the hypothesis. Steps for testing the hypothesis. Now the first one is that you will be forming the hypothesis. Forming the hypothesis. How many of you are aware of hypothesis? You have heard this term hypothesis already?
So could you please repeat?
Which one?
So what did you say in the last line? I just couldn't get it.
No, I didn't. I just asked how many of you have heard the term hypothesis in the past, maybe in your UG or through some other classes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we have.
When did you hear?
So it's a common word for us. I mean, we heard it very often.
Okay, now. So half knowledge is always dangerous. So let us have a complete knowledge about the hypothesis. Now,
Yes.
forming First of all, you need to form the hypothesis, or you need to, I use the word frame, okay? Frame the hypothesis. They use the word forming. You can use the word frame, okay? Frame the hypothesis. That means frame, we have to write down the hypothesis. What is the hypothesis and how it should be written is very much important. One way is that you can write it in a mathematical way. Now, generally, I have told you hypothesis, you are telling something about the population. Now, what is this something? This something could be, it could be based on, it could be the mean, okay? Okay, it could be mean of the mean, okay? It could be mean, or it could be standard deviation, or it could be anything, okay? It could be anything, any kind of anything about the population is what we call it as. So that means when I take a sample, when I say that this mean of the sample is, I'm predicting about the population, is what we call it as hypothesis. Now, how do I write this? Is that H naught? I use the term H naught for hypothesis. Basically, what is H naught is equal to null hypothesis. Null hypothesis, and H1 is what I call it as alternate hypothesis. So there are two types of hypothesis. One is that null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. And I have also told you what is hypothesis in mathematical term, in research term. That means when I predict the mean of the population by knowing the mean of the sample is what I call it as hypothesis. Now, let's say that Rohit, what is your UG percentage? Rohit, what is your UG percentage? Rohit, come to sleeping mode.
No, sir. No, sir. I am.
What is your UG
I'm
percentage?
just trying to unmute, sir.
Okay.
So my
Did you take any
49.5.
percentage? Not a problem. To be 100% also. UG percentage, approximately, whichever you like.
70.
70. Okay. What is Shubham? What is your UG percentage? Some percentage.
6.5. 46.
60.
46%.
Okay, leave it. Let's say 50%. Okay, 4% grace. So Shubham has scored almost 50%, and Rohit have scored 60%. What is the average mean? What is the average here? What is the average mean here? Mean itself is average. What is the average here? What is the average UG percentage of Rohit and Shubham? What is the average?
10.
10. Shubham 50%. Rohit 60%. What is the average?
One is 60 and one is 40, right?
40. I'm giving
So
him a
60
grace
and
mark.
50 have 55, sir.
50 and 55%.
So 55.
So
No, I'm
this is the sample.
asking the
55.
percentage.
No, I have told, no, I have corrected 46% to 50%. Okay. Let us assume that Shubham Patida has
Yes, sir.
scored 50% and Rohit has scored 60% in their UG. The average of both their percentage is 55. Is this sample mean or population mean? Is this sample mean or population mean? This 55% is this sample mean or
Sample mean.
population? This is sample mean because I have considered only Rohit and Shubham Patida. I have not considered the other 11 students. From this sample mean, I come to a logical conclusion that the average UG percentage of AU students might be 55%. This is what we call it as hypothesis. That is, through the sample mean, I am predicting about the population. I am predicting about the population mean, right? One more thing, let's say that you can see that the percentage between Rohit Mins and Shubham Patida, the difference is more. That is, the deviation is more. The deviation is more. So that I can come to a logical conclusion that the deviation in percentage for the class as a whole is also will be very high. That means somebody might be having 70%, another person might be having 55% also. So this is also, I am coming to a logical conclusion through their percentage. Let's say that if AU is having a very strict rule that we will be allowing to do MBA for only those students who are having more than 60%, then probably this deviation might be less. So now this is what we call it as hypothesis. Now under this, with this understanding, I've told you about two different types of hypothesis. That is null hypothesis, and the other one is alternate hypothesis. What is meant by null hypothesis? As the name suggests, null indicate that it is nothing. It is void. Okay. Now, how do I have to understand this null hypothesis when it comes to problems? Is that whenever there is no difference, null means it is no. Okay. Null means it is no, void. Okay. No difference between sample and population is null hypothesis. Whenever there is no difference between, null hypothesis indicate that there is no difference between sample characteristics and population characteristics, is what we call it as null hypothesis. Whenever there is no difference between sample characteristics and population characteristics, is what we call it as null hypothesis. This characteristics I can replace it with something like mean. Okay, it may be standard deviation or it might be median. Like this I can replace. So now this is what we call it as null hypothesis. Mathematically I can denote this sample mean as x bar. Okay, and population mean, there is something like mu is there, which I cannot type it here, but let us say that right now I'm using the word p. Okay, so I can type like this: x is equal to p. You're getting, guys? This is what we call it as null hypothesis. Do you find this in some of the problems? Whenever you're solving, you find that okay, x bar is equal to mu, and this population mean, it may be a population mean or it might be some number. Some number means, let's say that I might say that my alto car gives 20 kilometer mileage, so that 20 kilometer also could be that population mean. So when we are solving the problem, you get to know about, but what you have to understand right now is that null hypothesis, generally I will be equating sample mean with population mean. When the sample mean is equal to population mean, that indicate that there is no difference. Say for example, I'm taking statistic class for AU as well as for BCU. I'm having a null hypothesis that there is no difference between the marks between the maybe statistical understanding of AU students and BCU students. Okay, there is no difference between the understanding of statistics for BU students and AU students, and I conduct the internal test, and I found that the average internal test marks for BCU as well as for AU is more or less same. That indicate that the null hypothesis is correct. If I say that there is a difference between the statistical understanding of BCU students and AU students, and if I conduct the internal test, and if I found that AU students have scored more marks than BCU students, then the marks of or the understanding of BCU students is not same as the understanding of AU students. That means that I can't say that there is no difference, but rather I would say there is a difference. There is a difference in sample mean and population mean. That means X is not equal to, okay, X not equal to P. Now I can have population, or I can have two sample also. Okay, I can have sample and population, or I can also have two sample. Two sample means sample, that is BCU and AU class. Two sample. There is no population here. Sample and population means Rohit and Shubham UG marks. Okay, average UG marks of Rohit and Shubham. This is sample. This is sample. Sample mean is equal to population mean. So let's say that it is 55 or 55. Okay, this is what we call it as hypothesis. Okay, so I can compare sample with population, or I can compare two different samples also, and I come to a logical conclusion which is more effective. Let me take another example. Let's say that I am giving some kind of you all guys, you know who's the most weaker sex? Is it men or women?
So undoubtedly men.
Weaker sex, not stronger.
Weaker is men only. Why
Men
you
only.
think women are?
I think
Yes, sir.
clear. Any opposition?
It's a strong in sense, physically strong than maybe boys. Yeah.
Physically strong. Okay. What about, I mean, guys? I mean, Rohit, Shubham, who's more strong?
I don't know, sir.
Rohit is not at all strong.
Rohit is not strong. Shubham?
बेचारा का हाथ एक बार में टूट गया.
See,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
when you look at actually, women is actually more strong in all. Maybe they may not, muscular wise they are not very strong. That means I'm not talking about the physical strength. I did not specify. Of course, men physically they are very strong. There is
Mental.
not physically actually, not even physically. I'm talking about the muscular strength. That is, I mean, maybe men can take 100 on an average. Any man can take 100 kg of weight. Maybe women on average they can take only 50 kg. So this is something which is generally understood. So now I did not ask about that kind of strong. What I have asked is, in general, who is more strong? It is actually women who is more strong, both physically as well as emotionally also. When you take a case of this COVID, if you have tracked the news, almost 70 to 90% people who are affected were only men. So they say that this COVID is having a gender bias, that it is affecting only men but not women. And this is not just the case of only this corona, it is the case in general also. When you take a case of, let's say, if you're having a boy baby and a girl baby, the chances of uh, a girl baby survival is more than the boy baby. In case of any kinds of deadly disease, whether it be cancer, AIDS, or even COVID, or what it's COVID is actually not a deadly disease. The survival rate among women is more than that of men. Now the question arises: how come it is when we physically see that men is having more muscular power and ideally they should be able to fight with the disease and overcome the disease, and when sometimes women have a very stupid reasoning, oh, women cry, that is why they are physically very very strong. No, no, not like that. Those are all some gift of God. No, cry comes means it will come. Cry stop, it will stop. Cry observe, it will observe automatically at the same time. So don't come to a logical conclusion that women cry, that is why they are weak. No, not like that. Physically they are very strong, and the reason being, why is it so that actually women have two X chromosome. Okay, so X chromosome is like a sword. It's like a sword. But whereas men has only one X chromosome, the other one is Y chromosome. Men means it is XY chromosome. Women means it is 2X chromosome. So this extra X gives them a power to compete against any kind of diseases. It makes them physically as well as emotionally very very strong. That is why they're able to overcome any diseases. That is why only 30%, 30 to 10% cases is only women compared to men. Guys, are you listening, or have I lost?
Also, we are listening,
Also,
sir.
yeah.
Are you thinking? Are you thinking?
No, sir, we are there, sir.
You are there. So this is the reason. So if someone says that women is a weaker sex, so in all these days, this story was going on. So we have to stop this story. It is not women; it is actually men who's a very very weak, both physically as well as emotionally, right? So where was I, man? I think I lost. Okay, let us come back to the hypothesis part. So are you clear about what is meant by sample and the population where I have? Why did I take this example? Let's say that I'm giving some medicine, okay, among this corona, let's say whether it is a malaria medicine for men and as well as women. And I'm checking to whom it is very effective. Is it effective for men or is it effective for women? And then I come to some kind of conclusion. Now that is what we call it as I'm comparing two samples. That is also a kind of hypothesis. In this case, I will be mentioning S1 is equal to S2. S1 means it is the sample mean of men, sample mean of women. Okay, I'll take 10 men, 10 women, give the coronavirus, who are having coronavirus, give some kind of antibiotics and check who is able to recover more, men or women. And I create a hypothesis like this. There is no, okay, now tell me what is the hypothesis in this case? Guys, I'm giving you a scenario. I'm taking 10 men, 10 women who are affected with coronavirus, COVID-19, and I'm giving them antibiotics, and I'm checking their progress. Now, what should be the hypothesis that I need to have? What should be the, how do I have to frame the null hypothesis in this case? Any volunteer? How do I have to frame the null hypothesis? Guys, are you there? Are you listening? Why don't you attend?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're listening.
Why don't you attempt? Unless you don't understand this, I don't think so you can understand other things. Can I have a hypothesis, null hypothesis like this? I can write like this.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, 10 men and 10 women, right?
How I can write it mathematically? Mathematically, I have to write like this. S1 is equal to, for null hypothesis I'm telling, Okay. Arey Baba, this is why when you are mentioning BCU is equal to AU, this is null hypothesis, no? Correct. BCU is equal to AU means that is intelligence,
No
okay?
difference.
IQ, that is understanding of BCU is equal to, or no, it's knowledge, okay? Or let's say that stats knowledge of BCU is equal to stats knowledge of AU. This is hypothesis, correct? Correct?
Yes, sir.
This is null hypothesis. Similarly, I am using a term S1, okay? Or let me use it like normally they use the term S1, okay? M is equal to F, okay? Recovery of COVID, okay? COVID recovery, or let's say that COVID recovery among men is equal to COVID recovery among women. How do I have to frame this? How do I have to frame this? Come on, guys. How do I have to write it in writing? I have to frame like this. There is no difference between the recovery among women and recovery between who are affected by COVID. Okay, that means I meant to say that men and women are equal when it comes to the recovery of COVID. But is that the case? Is that the case?
No.
No, that's not the
Not so.
case. That's not the case. The case is the recovery among women is more than men. That's the fact, no? That's what I have been telling, right? Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
in this case, I could not prove this. I could not prove this. This I'm not able to prove the, that means not able to prove the null hypothesis. Okay, guys? Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, got
Okay. Similarly, I can use it for, here I have used the second type, that is comparing two different samples. I can also compare sample mean with population mean. Let's say that the average, the national average height of women is 5.4. It is 5 feet and 4 inch. 5 feet, okay? 5.4 inch, that is 5.4. I am calculating the height of Varisha, Ashika, and Naushia, and their height is coming something around 5.4 also. Okay, what will be the hypothesis? In this case, sample height is equal to population height.
Population height.
So in this case, am I able to prove my null hypothesis? In this case,
Yes,
am I
sir.
able to prove the null hypothesis?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm able to prove because your height is also
Because
5.4.
height, yeah.
National average height of Indian women is also 5.4. So yes, I'm able to prove this. If your height is only 5 and the national average height is 5.4, that means I'm not able to prove the null hypothesis. When I'm not able to prove the null hypothesis, the one which comes into the picture is alternate hypothesis. When the sample mean and the population mean is equal, I am able to prove the null hypothesis. When the sample mean is not equal to population mean, that means I am not able to prove the null hypothesis. Rather, I am able to prove the alternate hypothesis. So now this is what I have given it in different way. Are you clear, guys? Can we go on to the next one if you're clear? Do you
Yes, sir.
understand the
Yes,
difference?
sir.
Do
Yes,
you
sir.
understand? See, why do I use the word null here? What is the usage of the term null? Null means, what do you mean by the term null?
So because it's unproven.
Void. No, no.
Zero.
Null means no.
No
Null
or
means
void.
void. Why do I use the word no? Means it is no difference. What do you mean by that? What no difference? No difference between sample and population. No difference between population and no difference between two
Variable.
samples.
Yes.
Getting? This is what we call it as null hypothesis. This no difference means it is equal to. Are you getting?
Yes,
No
sir.
difference indicate that it is equal to.
Yes, sir.
Agreed? Are you able to understand? Unless, see, I can only teach. You have to understand because it is not theory. It is somewhere linked with mathematics and research also. I use the term null for no difference. What do I mean by the term no difference? Means it is equal to. If there is a difference, it can't be equal, no. If there is a difference, it can't be equal. When there is no difference, ultimately they're equal, right? So you will get more clarity once you solve some of the problems. So the opposite it is null hypothesis. That means that there is a difference. That means sample mean is not equal to population mean. No difference means sample mean is equal to population mean, right? So so this you have to keep that in mind. And second thing is that in the process of hypothesis formulation, second one is the error. What type of error that you need to fix? Guys, are you clear with null and alternate hypothesis so that I can go to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There are two type of errors. Two type of errors. One is that type 1 error. Another one is that type 2. Hey, Shubham, are you there? You're silent.
Yes, sir.
I was thinking whether I will ask his pending fees or not. I will not ask now. Don't worry. Right. So, what is this type 1 error? See, guys, generally in our life, whenever we make, generally given a choice, will we have a good decision or a bad decision in our life? How many of you say, sir, by default, I choose only wrong choice? So that is me, sir. I mean, whenever I choose something, no, oh, always I choose bad. Anybody is like this? No? Good, yeah.
So
Somebody
me. Yes, sir.
see anything.
Me.
See when I choose
Anything, sir.
when I choose a MBA program by default, वो तो wrong होता है. So when I choose anything in my life, whether I do research or not, it goes wrong only. Even when I choose any kind of choice also, no, if I don't know the answer, A, B, C, D, if I choose B, definitely I know that it is not B, but knowing that I will choose B because that is what it is me. And these kind of people, they always have one more thing, that is they will also forego choosing the right choice. Are you getting, guys? So two type of mistakes you will make in your life. One is that choosing the wrong one and foregoing the right one. Are you able to understand the second choice, what I'm making?
Yes, sir.
You will choose the wrong one, that is also wrong. When you don't choose the right one, that is also error. Correct? When you do that is also pain, no? Sometimes when you choose a wrong one, the pain is sometimes lesser than when you don't choose the wrong one is more. Say for example, let's say that you had two different choices for doing MBA, one IIBS and another one another B school. Let's say that your friend has joined in the other B school in your own hometown, and you got to know that he got placed, and that means you feel more bad. That means that you have done both errors. Okay, and I'm just joking. Don't take it very personally. And just for an example, I am telling it to you. So whenever in our life we might choose a wrong choice and we might not choose a correct choice. Now this happens in hypothesis also. Hypothesis also, it is all about decision. So whenever I make hypothesis, sometimes this type one is reject oh my god, reject the correct null hypothesis, accept the wrong hypothesis. Hypothesis in this case, let me use the term assumption. What it is? Assumption. When you reject the correct assumption, okay, assumption or choice, okay, or we can call it as assumption or decision, okay, is the word. Let's say that, okay, let me give you an example, guys. Now Maruti, let's say Maruti has two different cars. One is Swift and the other one is Ritz. Let's go back to some 10-15 years before. I don't know when Swift and Ritz was launched. Let's say that they launched it something like 15 years before. 15 years before. Now Maruti had a choice. Do we have to launch Ritz or Swift? Which one that we need to choose? Which is the most successful model, Swift or Ritz?
Swift.
Swift. Which is the failure model?
Shift.
Swift is the success. Which is a failure model? Failure model. People don't like the design
Ritz.
of the Ritz.
Ritz.
Look at the design of the car. I mean,
Yes, sir.
as though the rear portion of the car
Ritz.
does look
Yes, sir.
like it was met with an accident. That is why you find a lot of discounts for Ritz whenever you're going to the showroom. So whenever they are choosing, so let's say that whenever they are, let's say that what is the possibility of Maruti making a decision? One possibility is that let's say that Maruti has chosen Ritz over, or let's say that Maruti has not chosen Swift. Okay, you're getting, guys? They have not chosen Swift. I'm not telling anything about Ritz. This is what we call it as type 1 error. Are you getting, guys? They have not
Yes,
chosen
sir.
the correct decision. They should have chosen Swift. They have not chosen. They said, okay, let us postpone this project of Swift. Let us not choose this. Second scenario is that they had chosen RITs, which is the wrong decision. That is type 2
Type 2 error.
error. Now tell me, do you accept that Tata Nano was a wrong, was a failure model? Is Tata Nano a failure model?
Yes,
Kind
sir.
Of course, yes.
It's a failure.
Tata Nano is a failure model. That is why Tata has stopped production of Tata Nano. You don't find any Tata Nano cars being manufactured now. They have stopped it. Now, what type of error that Ratan Tata did? Type 1 error or type 2 error? Which error that Ratan Tata did?
Two, sir.
Type 2 error. He accepted
Yes, sir, type 2
the
error.
wrong decision. What was the wrong decision? Launching Tata Nano. So the kind of error what he made was type 2 error. Are you getting, guys? What do you mean by this type 1 error? Type
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
definitely there will be a question on error. No, because whenever we are framing, because see, when we are framing the hypothesis, this hypothesis is about the population, not about the sample. This hypothesis is about the population through the sample. Okay, so now if this is the case, I am prone to make some error because I am predicting the population through the sample. When I reject the correct hypothesis, when I reject the correct hypothesis, that is, I'm actually making type 1 error. When I'm accepting the wrong hypothesis, when I'm accepting the wrong assumption, that is what we call it as type 2 error. Okay, you will get more clarity once we start solving problem. This type 1 error, I will then be using a symbol like alpha. Type 2 error, they'll be using the symbol like beta. The moment you write rejecting null hypothesis, they will give full marks for type 1 error. Many of the people, they get confused between type 1 and type 2. Don't get confused now. And after that, once this step 2 is over, once this step 2 is over, then the third step, when it comes to the testing of hypothesis, is that then you fix the level of significance. Okay, level of significance. See, it is the more normally whether it is normally we use 1% or 5%. Okay, what is that level? What is the tolerance level? What is the tolerance? What is the kind of tolerance that I'm giving? That we'll discuss it about when we are solving the example. Normally, if it is for 5 point, if it is a 5%, I will be using a point called 1.96, and for 1%, I'll be using a value called 2.54. I'm not sure whether it is 2.54. Okay, 1 minute. Mm. 1 minute, guys. Just give me 1 minute. Let me just quickly check what is the value for, what is the Z value for 1%, though it is very rare. I think it is 2.54 if I'm not wrong. I think so it is. Let me just Google and find it out. What is the value for that is Z value for 1% level of significance. Critical values of G. 1 minute, guys. 1.96. Okay, it is 2.5. Okay, somewhere around 2.58. Okay. Okay. 1%. 5. Okay, guys, 1 minute. Against critical value. 1 minute. 2.58. 2.5. Guys, are you there? Are you guys listening?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Otherwise,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
are we going overboard? In that case, we will wind up the class very fast. Uh, just I don't remember it on top of my mind. So 1.96. Okay, fine. For a two-tile test, now this guys, please make a note of it. These are the things which you will some practical difficulty you will face when you're whiteboard. Whiteboard is there. 2 point. All right, guys. I will erase it. 2.58. Got it. 1 minute. Let me just stop.